The alien emissary's warning sent shockwaves through the leadership of Earth's nations. For years, the governments of the world had suspected that they were being monitored and assessed by mysterious alien forces, but concrete proof had always eluded them. Now, with the threat of imminent annihilation, humanity was forced to confront the grim reality that they were seen as a grave danger by an advanced galactic civilization. In the United Nations headquarters in New York, the Secretary General convened an emergency session of the Security Council, summoning the ambassadors of the world's major powers. Tension filled the room as the alien pilot, a lanky humanoid with iridescent skin, detailed the Galactic Council's plans. They see you as a cancer, a primitive, volatile species on the cusp of mastering technology that could upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy, the alien explained, his voice laden with urgency. Your rapid technological and social progress has alarmed them. They believe you must be subjugated or destroyed before you become a threat. The ambassadors listened in stunned silence, struggling to process the gravity of the situation. For decades, humanity had dreamed of making contact with alien civilizations, envisioning grand alliances and the exchange of knowledge. Instead, they now faced the very real prospect of annihilation at the hands of a hostile galactic order. You have one solar cycle, roughly 365 of your Earth days. Before the Council's invasion fleet arrives, the alien continued, I beg you, heed my warning and evacuate your homeworld immediately. Gather your people, your resources, your most precious knowledge and artifacts. Flee to the stars, for if you remain, you will be destroyed. The Security Council erupted into frantic discussion, with ambassadors arguing over the appropriate course of action. Should they alert the public and risk widespread panic? Should they try to mount a defense or focus solely on evacuation efforts? Tempers flared as nations jockeyed for priority in any potential exodus. Amid the chaos, the alien pilot grew visibly distressed. Please, you must act quickly, he pleaded. The Council will show no mercy. I have risked everything to reach you, to give you this chance. Do not squander it. Finally, the Secretary General raised his hands, calling for silence. Ambassadors, we are facing an unprecedented crisis that transcends all national boundaries. The survival of our species hangs in the balance. He turned to the alien emissary, his expression grave. You say we have 1 year to evacuate. Is there no way we can negotiate with this Galactic Council to plead our case and avoid such drastic action? The alien shook his head sorrowfully. I'm afraid not. The Council has already made its decision. Your planet, your people, they have been deemed unfit to remain. You are out of time. He paused, then added, I wish I could offer you more hope, but the truth is, you must run, or you will be destroyed. An eerie silence settled over the room as the ambassadors absorbed the alien's words. The future of humanity now hung by the thinnest of threads, dependent on their ability to rally the world's resources and people in a desperate exodus from their ancestral home. In the days that followed, the news of the impending alien invasion spread like wildfire, igniting panic and chaos across the globe. World leaders struggled to maintain order as citizens flooded the streets, desperate to flee the doomed planet. Scientific and technological communities went into overdrive, repurposing existing spacecraft and hastily designing new colony ships capable of transporting millions. Massive logistical challenges arose as nations competed for limited resources and space on the Exodus ships. Tensions flared between governments, with accusations of hoarding supplies and unfair allocation of seats on the vessels. The alien emissary, true to his word, provided what limited assistance he could, but his knowledge of human technology and organization was severely limited. As the deadline approached, it became clear that not everyone would be able to escape. Heartbreaking scenes unfolded as families were forced to make agonizing decisions about who would be allowed to board the ships. Riots and looting broke out in many cities, further complicating the evacuation efforts. In the midst of the chaos, a lone figure emerged as a beacon of hope. Dr. Amara Prasad, a brilliant astrophysicist and the director of the International Space Agency. Recognizing the dire need for unity and coordination, she spearheaded the creation of the Unified Exodus Council, bringing together the world's top scientists, engineers, and political leaders. "We are facing the greatest challenge in human history," Prasad declared in a televised address that was broadcast globally. "The Galactic Council may have deemed us unfit, but I say that humanity is more than capable of rising to this occasion. We will not go gentle into the night. We will fight for our survival, and we will prevail." Under Prasad's leadership, the Unified Exodus Council implemented a comprehensive plan to prioritize the most critical personnel, resources, and technologies for the Exodus. Massive construction efforts were launched to build additional colony ships, while a global network of underground bunkers and cryogenic facilities were established to protect those unable to evacuate. As the days ticked away, the world held its breath, watching the skies for any sign of the impending alien invasion. The alien emissary remained a constant presence, offering what limited guidance he could while also pleading with his own people to reconsider their course of action. Surely there must be a way to reason with the Council, to convince them that humanity is not a threat. He would argue, his voice tinged with desperation. "We are a young and dynamic species, yes, but we have so much to offer the galaxy. Must we be condemned to annihilation for the crime of our potential?" But the Council's decision remained unshakable, and the invasion fleet continued its relentless approach. Earth's leaders knew that the time for negotiation had passed. Now their only hope was to evacuate as many of their people as possible before the alien armada arrived. In the final days before the deadline, the world witnessed an unprecedented display of human ingenuity and determination. Across the globe, people worked around the clock, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose and the will to survive. Engineers pushed the limits of their technology, designing spacecraft capable of transporting entire cities to the stars. As the invasion fleet grew ever closer, the Exodus ships began to lift off, carrying with them the greatest hopes and dreams of humanity. Millions watched in awe and terror as the massive vessels, laden with precious cargo, disappeared into the void of space. Those left behind prayed for the success of their kin, even as they steeled themselves for the coming storm. And then, with a flash of light in the night sky, the first signs of the alien invasion emerged. The long-awaited moment had arrived, and the fate of the human race hung in the balance. As the first Exodus ships blasted off from their launch sites around the world, the alien emissary remained behind, unwilling to abandon the people he had sworn to protect. He pleaded with the Unified Exodus Council to let him accompany them, but Amara Prasad gently refused. "Your place is with your own people now," she told him. "You have done more than enough to help us, but the journey ahead is ours alone to make. Go, warn your kin of what is to come. Perhaps together we can find a way to change the Council's mind." The alien emissary's eyes glistened with unshed tears as he gazed up at the rapidly disappearing colony ships. "I pray you find a safe haven, my human friends," he whispered. "May the stars guide you to a future where you can thrive, rather than merely survive." With a heavy heart, he turned and boarded his small craft, punching in the coordinates for his homeworld. As he rocketed away, he could see the first wave of the Galactic Council's invasion fleet emerging from the shadows of the moon, their massive warships descending upon the blue-green orb of Earth. Back on the ground, the Unified Exodus Council sprang into action, coordinating the final stages of the evacuation. Amara Prasad, her usually calm demeanor betrayed by the fire in her eyes, addressed the leaders of the world's nations. "We have one chance, and one chance only," she declared. "Every second counts, so we must work together as never before. Prioritize the evacuation of women, children, and key personnel, scientists, engineers, doctors, and the like. Load the colony ships to capacity, but leave no one behind." The ambassadors nodded grimly, understanding the stakes. They dispersed to oversee the final preparations, barking orders and cajoling their citizens to board the waiting vessels. Panic and chaos still reigned in many areas, but the unified Exodus Council's unwavering leadership helped to restore a semblance of order. As the last of the colony ships took to the skies, the invasion force descended upon Earth. Massive alien battlecruisers blotted out the sun, their weapons blazing as they targeted military installations, population centers, and any signs of resistance. The skies above the planet erupted in a dazzling display of firepower, as humanity's meager defenses fought a desperate, ultimately futile battle against the overwhelming alien might. Amara Prasad, watching the unfolding devastation from the control center of the unified Exodus Council, felt a deep ache in her heart. "Forgive us," she whispered, her fingers trembling as she issued the final evacuation order. "We have failed you, Earth, but we will not forget you, nor the price you have paid for our survival." In the chaos and carnage, a handful of brave souls refused to surrender. Rogue military units, maverick scientists, and even ordinary civilians launched suicidal attacks against the invading fleet, determined to inflict as much damage as possible before the end. Their acts of defiance were immortalized in recordings that would eventually find their way to the colony ships, inspiring the survivors with tales of humanity's indomitable spirit. As the last of the colony ships escaped the solar system, the alien emissary's homeworld received a desperate distress call. Horrified by the scale of the Galactic Council's attack, the species immediately mobilized their own defenses, determined to intercept the invasion force and buy the fleeing humans more time. In a bold and risky maneuver, the alien fleet emerged from hyperspace directly in the path of the Galactic Council's armada, firing a barrage of missiles and plasma torpedoes. The unexpected assault caught the invaders off guard, and for a brief moment, it seemed as if the Council's forces might be driven back. But the numerical and technological superiority of the Galactic Council proved too much to overcome. The alien defenders, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, were systematically destroyed, their ships ripped apart by the relentless onslaught of the invaders. As the last of the alien vessels were reduced to burning hulks, the Galactic Council's fleet resumed its course towards Earth, their resolve hardened by the futile resistance. Aboard the colony ships, the surviving members of humanity watched in horror as the images of the battle were relayed to them. Tears of grief and rage mingled on the faces of the refugees, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their saviors had paid the ultimate price. "They gave their lives to buy us time," Amara Prasad said, her voice thick with emotion. "We must honor their sacrifice by ensuring that humanity survives, no matter the cost." In the days that followed, the colony ships pushed onward, their crews working around the clock to maintain systems, ration resources, and plan for the uncertain future. As they distanced themselves from the doomed planet, the refugees caught glimpses of the alien invasion force in their rearview screens, a grim reminder of the fate that had befallen their homeworld. Tensions ran high as the survivors grappled with the trauma of their exodus, the loss of loved ones, and the overwhelming uncertainty of their situation. Arguments and disputes broke out as people struggled to cope with the sudden upheaval of their lives. Amara Prasad and the unified Exodus Council worked tirelessly to maintain order and morale, knowing that the survival of the human race depended on their ability to keep the colony ships united and focused. One of the greatest challenges they faced was the need to choose a destination, a new home where the refugees could settle and rebuild. With Earth now lost, the Council pored over stellar charts and astrological data, searching for a suitable planet that could sustain human life. The decision was a weighty one, as the future of the species hung in the balance. After weeks of intense debate and analysis, Amara Prasad announced the Council's decision. They would set a course for the Kepler 186 system, a distant star cluster that had been identified as potentially habitable. The journey would be long and perilous, but it offered the best chance for the human race to start anew. Kepler 186 is over 500 light-years from Earth, Prasad declared in a broadcast to the colony ships. "It will take us decades to reach our destination, but it is our only hope. On this new world, We will build a future for ourselves and our children, a future where humanity can thrive, free from the threats of the Galactic Council. The announcement was met with a mix of hope and trepidation. Many of the refugees had never even dreamed of traveling to the stars, let alone establishing a new home on a distant, unknown world. But the alternative, remaining adrift in the void, with no place to call their own, was far worse. As the colony ships set their course for Kepler 186, the survivors looked back one last time at the fading blue-green orb of their home planet. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was now engulfed in flames, its once vibrant surface scarred by the Galactic Council's relentless bombardment. "Forgive us, Earth," Amara Prasad whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "We will never forget you, and we will ensure that your sacrifice was not in vain." With a heavy heart, she turned her gaze towards the stars, her determination hardening as she contemplated the challenges that lay ahead. The long journey to Kepler 186 would be filled with peril, but she knew that the survival of the human race depended on their ability to overcome every obstacle. As the colony ships accelerated towards their new home, the Unified Exodus Council began the arduous task of planning for the future. They would need to establish a functioning society, cultivate new resources, and prepare for the possibility of encountering hostile alien life. But they were undaunted, driven by the knowledge that they carried the hopes and dreams of all those who had been left behind. In the depths of space, the human refugees gazed out at the infinite expanse of stars, their hearts heavy with grief, but also filled with a newfound resolve. They were the last remnants of a once vibrant civilization, but they were determined to ensure that humanity would rise again, stronger and more resilient than ever before. As the colony ships carrying the last remnants of humanity raced towards the distant Kepler 186 system, the fate of their homeworld was sealed. The Galactic Council's invasion force descended upon Earth with ruthless efficiency, reducing cities to rubble and annihilating any pockets of resistance. In the aftermath of the alien onslaught, the planet's surface lay devastated, its once vibrant ecosystems now blanketed in the acrid smoke of burning cities and scorched earth. The Council's forces, satisfied that their mission had been accomplished, began the process of establishing a rigorous occupation, deploying legions of robotic drones and automated monitoring systems to ensure the complete subjugation of the conquered world. Deep beneath the ruins of major metropolitan centers, however, a glimmer of hope remained. In the final hours before the invasion, the Unified Exodus Council had overseen the establishment of a network of heavily fortified underground bunkers and cryogenic facilities designed to protect select groups of survivors until the time was right for them to emerge. Led by a cadre of the world's most brilliant scientists, engineers, and military strategists, these hidden enclaves were stocked with the resources necessary to sustain human life for decades, if not centuries. Equipped with advanced technology and a wealth of knowledge, the bunker dwellers bided their time, waiting for the day when they could strike back against the alien oppressors and reclaim their rightful place in the stars. As the colony ships pushed deeper into the void, the refugees aboard grappled with the weight of their loss and the uncertainty of their future. Amara Prasad, her once sharp features now etched with lines of worry, convened regular meetings with the Unified Exodus Council, strategizing ways to ensure the survival and eventual resurgence of the human race. "We must not lose hope," she told the assembled leaders, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "Earth may be lost, but we carried the seeds of humanity's future within these ships. Our journey will be long and perilous, but if we remain united, we will find a way to not only survive, but to thrive." The council members nodded solemnly, their expressions a mix of determination and grief. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, from maintaining the delicate balance of the colony ship's ecosystems to navigating the treacherous expanse of interstellar space. And looming over it all was the ever-present threat of the Galactic Council, whose forces would undoubtedly pursue the fleeing humans to the ends of the galaxy. One by one, The council members offered their insights and proposals, each one more daring and ambitious than the last. Some advocated for a bold offensive strategy, suggesting that they should seek out allies among the council's subjugated species and mount a counterattack. Others argued for a more cautious, defensive approach, focusing on fortifying their new home and avoiding further confrontation with the alien overlords. Amara Prasad listened intently, her brow furrowed in deep thought. She knew that the decision she and the council made would shape the future of the human race for generations to come. After long hours of discussion and debate, she finally spoke, her voice commanding the attention of all present. "We will do both," she declared, her eyes burning with a fierce determination. "We will establish a new home on Kepler 186, one that is defensible and self-sufficient. And we will also seek out allies, forging connections with other species who have suffered under the Galactic Council's oppression. Together, we will build a resistance movement that will one day challenge the Council's rule and reclaim our rightful place in the stars." The council members murmured their assent, their spirits buoyed by Amara's unwavering vision. They immediately set to work, dividing into specialized teams to tackle the myriad challenges that lay ahead. Some focused on the technological aspects of the journey, devising innovative propulsion systems and life support systems to sustain the colony ships over the decades-long voyage. Others delved into the realm of xenobiology, studying the potential flora and fauna of Kepler 186 in preparation for establishing a thriving, self-sufficient ecosystem. Meanwhile, a covert team of intelligence specialists and diplomatic envoys began the arduous task of reaching out to potential allies, using the limited communication systems on the colony ships to establish contact with other species who had fallen victim to the Galactic Council's tyranny. The risks were enormous, as any detection by the Council's forces could spell doom for the entire human exodus, but the potential rewards were equally great. As the colony ships hurtled through the void, the refugees aboard found themselves confronted with a host of unexpected challenges. Food and water rationing became a daily struggle, as the limited resources on board were stretched to their limits. Tensions flared between different factions, with some calling for a more authoritarian approach to maintaining order, while others advocated for a more democratic, egalitarian system. Amara Prasad and the Unified Exodus Council worked tirelessly to find a balance, instituting fair and equitable policies, while also cracking down on dissent and unrest. They knew that the survival of the human race depended on their ability to keep the colony ships united and focused on the long-term goal of establishing a new home. In the midst of these trials, the refugees found solace in small acts of kindness and community. Impromptu schools were established, where the elderly shared their wisdom with the young, and scientists and engineers collaborated to solve pressing problems. Artists and musicians found ways to lift the spirits of their fellow refugees, their performances a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And through it all, the council members continued to work tirelessly, using every scrap of knowledge and technology at their disposal to chart a course towards Kepler 186. They knew that the journey would be fraught with danger, from the ever-present threat of Galactic Council forces to the hazards of navigating the uncharted depths of interstellar space. But as the colony ships drew closer to their destination, a new sense of hope began to take root among the refugees. The promise of a fresh start, a world untouched by the horrors of the Galactic Council's conquest, fueled their determination to overcome every obstacle. Amara Prasad, her eyes fixed on the distant stars, knew that the true test of humanity's resilience was yet to come. The establishment of a new home on Kepler 186 would be only the first step in a much larger struggle, one that would ultimately determine the fate of the human race. "We have come this far," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now we must forge a future that will inspire generations to come, a future where humanity stands tall, unbroken by the trials we have faced." With renewed vigor, she turned to the council, her expression resolute. "Prepare the colonists," she said. "We are almost home." As the colony ships approached the Kepler 186 system, the refugees aboard watched with a mix of trepidation and anticipation. After decades of grueling travel through the void of interstellar space, they were finally within reach of their new home, a verdant, Earth-like world that promised a chance at a fresh start. Amara Prasad, now graying but no less determined, stood at the forefront of the unified Exodus Council, her gaze fixed on the distant planet. "There it is," she announced, her voice ringing with a sense of triumph. "Kepler 186, our new home." The refugees erupted into a chorus of cheers and applause, their spirits lifted by the prospect of finally setting foot on solid ground after so many years of uncertainty and hardship. But Prasad quickly raised her hand, silencing the celebratory din. "We must not let our guard down," she warned. "The journey is far from over. We still face the daunting task of establishing a viable, self-sustaining colony on Kepler 186, and the threat of the Galactic Council looms ever-present." The council members nodded in solemn agreement, their expressions betraying a mixture of hope and trepidation. They knew that the challenges ahead would be immense, from terraforming the alien planet to defending their new home against potential hostile encounters with extraterrestrial life. As the colony ships began their final approach, a series of advanced scanners and sensors were deployed to gather as much data as possible about the Kepler 186 system. The information they gathered painted a promising picture. The planet's atmosphere was breathable, its climate relatively temperate, and its terrain seemed suitable for agriculture and settlement. But hidden deep within the planet's wilderness, a surprise awaited the human colonists. A network of heavily fortified bunkers, built by the survivors who had remained behind on Earth, had been activated, their occupants emerging from decades of cryogenic stasis. These hardy individuals, led by a fierce and determined military commander named Matthias Wolf, had been biding their time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike back against the Galactic Council's occupation. When the colony ships arrived, Wolf's forces quickly established contact, offering a stark warning. "Welcome to Kepler 186, but be wary," his message crackled over the communication channels. "The planet may appear uninhabited, but we have been preparing for your arrival. The Galactic Council's forces are still out there, and they will stop at nothing to hunt us down." Amara Prasad, her eyes widening with a mixture of relief and trepidation, immediately convened an emergency meeting of the unified Exodus Council. "This changes everything," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "We are no longer alone in this struggle. We have allies on the ground, ready to defend our new home." The council members debated the implications of Wolf's message, weighing the potential risks and rewards of aligning with the Earth-based resistance fighters. Some argued for a cautious approach, fearing that any overt show of force could provoke a devastating retaliation from the Galactic Council. Others, however, saw this as a golden opportunity to strike back and reclaim what had been stolen from them. In the end, Prasad's unwavering determination won the day. "We cannot afford to be passive," she declared. "The Galactic Council will not rest until they have destroyed every last vestige of humanity. We must join forces with Matthias Wolf and his people, and together we will forge a future where our species can thrive, free from the shackles of alien oppression." With renewed vigor, the council members began preparations for the colonization of Kepler 186, coordinating closely with Wolf's resistance fighters to establish a coordinated defense and a plan for the establishment of a new, thriving human civilization. As the colony ships touched down on the alien world, the refugees poured out, their eyes wide with wonder and trepidation. The lush, verdant landscape was a far cry from the scorched ruins of their former home, and the promise of a new beginning filled their hearts with a cautious optimism. But their jubilation was short-lived, as the first reports of Galactic Council activity in the system began to trickle in. Huge, ominous warships emerged from the shadows, their weapons bristling as they scanned the planet for any signs of human activity. Matthias Wolf, his face etched with a grim determination, quickly mobilized his forces, directing the colonists to take shelter in the network of underground bunkers that had been meticulously constructed over the decades. "They're coming," he warned, his voice carrying a sense of urgency. "We must be ready to defend our home at all costs." As the Galactic Council's forces descended upon Kepler 186, a furious battle erupted in the skies above the planet. The colonists, armed with a mix of repurposed technology from the colony ships and the advanced weaponry developed by Wolf's resistance fighters, fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a thirst for vengeance. For every warship the Galactic Council destroyed, the human forces lost precious resources and brave souls. But their determination never wavered, and slowly they began to gain the upper hand, their innovative tactics and intimate knowledge of the planet's terrain giving them a crucial advantage. Amara Prasad, watching the battle unfold from the relative safety of the underground bunkers, felt a surge of pride and hope. "They're doing it," she whispered, her eyes shining with tears. "They're fighting back, and they're winning." As the tide of the battle turned in favor of the human forces, the Galactic Council's commanders grew increasingly desperate. Realizing that their conquest of Kepler 186 was slipping away, they unleashed their most devastating weapon, a massive planet-destroying superweapon capable of vaporizing entire continents. The colonists, sensing the imminent threat, worked feverishly to evacuate their most vulnerable members, shuttling them deeper underground and praying that the bunkers would withstand the cataclysmic onslaught. Matthias Wolf, his face etched with a grim determination, led his best pilots in a suicide run against the Galactic Council's superweapon, determined to buy his people the time they needed to survive. In a blinding flash of light, the superweapon unleashed its devastating payload, cleaving a massive gash across the surface of Kepler 186. The colonists, huddled in their underground sanctuaries, felt the very foundations of their new home shake with the force of the impact. But to their astonishment, the bunkers held firm, their reinforced walls and advanced shielding systems protecting the refugees from the worst of the destruction. As the dust settled, they emerged, battered but unbowed, to survey the devastation that had been wrought upon their world. Amara Prasad, her face streaked with grime and tears, embraced Matthias Wolf, her voice trembling with emotion. "You did it," she breathed. "You saved us all." Wolf shook his head solemnly, his eyes fixed on the smoldering ruins of the Galactic Council's superweapon. "No, Amara," he said softly. "We have only just begun to fight." As the survivors began the arduous task of rebuilding their shattered home, they knew that the true test of their resilience was yet to come. The Galactic Council, enraged by their failure to eradicate the human presence on Kepler 186, would undoubtedly return with even greater force, determined to crush the growing resistance once and for all. But the colonists, fortified by their hard-won victories and the indomitable spirit of their ancestors, refused to be daunted. They would stand firm, ready to defend their new home and to fight for the freedom of their species, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of the Galactic Council's devastating superweapon attack on Kepler 186, the battered but resilient human colonists emerged from their underground shelters, their determination to fight for their new home stronger than ever. Amara Prasad, her face etched with a mixture of grief and resolve, stood at the forefront of the unified Exodus Council, addressing the assembled survivors. "We have endured the worst that the Galactic Council can throw at us," she declared, her voice carrying a sense of unwavering conviction. "But we are still standing, and we will not be cowed by their brutality." Matthias Wolf, the grizzled commander of the Earth-based resistance fighters, stepped forward, his weathered features hardening with grim purpose. "The Galactic Council believes they have broken us, that they can simply sweep us aside like an insignificant pest, but they have underestimated the indomitable spirit of humanity." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, their spirits lifted by the defiant words of their leaders. Amidst the rubble of the devastated surface, the colonists began the arduous task of rebuilding, their hands calloused, but their hearts filled with a renewed sense of purpose. In the weeks and months that followed, the human resistance on Kepler 186 grew in both size and strength. Matthias Wolff's battle-hardened fighters were joined by a steady stream of refugees from the colony ships, each one eager to take up arms and fight for the future of their species. The Unified Exodus Council, working in close coordination with Wolff's forces, oversaw the construction of a vast network of fortified outposts, hidden caches of weapons and supplies, and a sophisticated early warning system to detect any approaching Galactic Council threats. Amara Prasad, her once youthful features now etched with the weight of her responsibilities, spearheaded a diplomatic campaign, using the limited communication channels available to them to reach out to other alien species who had suffered under the Galactic Council's oppressive rule. "We are not the only ones who have been subjugated by the Council's tyranny," she proclaimed in a series of impassioned broadcasts. "There are others, like us, who long for freedom and the chance to forge their own destiny. We call upon you, our fellow sentient beings, to join us in this fight for liberation." To Prasad's surprise and delight, her pleas did not fall on deaf ears. Across the galaxy, pockets of resistance began to stir as alien civilizations from diverse backgrounds recognized the potential in aligning with the human colonists of Kepler 186. One by one, these unlikely allies emerged from the shadows, their ships arriving in the Kepler system to offer aid, resources, and the promise of a powerful coalition against the Galactic Council's forces. Among them was the species of the alien emissary who had first warned humanity of the impending invasion. Deeply ashamed of their people's complicity in the Council's actions, they pledged their full support to the human resistance, sharing invaluable intelligence and tactical expertise. As the growing alliance began to take shape, the Galactic Council reacted with a mixture of shock and fury. Their once unassailable dominance was now threatened by the audacity of these upstart species, daring to defy their authority. The Council's response was swift and merciless. They dispatched a massive armada to Kepler 186, their flagship leading the charge, its commander determined to crush the resistance movement once and for all. The battle that ensued was the stuff of legend, a clash of titans that shook the very foundations of the Kepler system. The human and alien forces, united in their defiance of the Galactic Council, fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a burning desire for freedom. Amara Prasad, her face illuminated by the flickering displays in the Resistance's command center, watched the carnage unfold with a mixture of horror and pride. "This is it," she murmured, her voice barely audible over the deafening roar of the battle. "We've come too far to back down now." Matthias Wolff, his gaze fixed on the unfolding conflict, barked orders to his subordinates, his tactical acumen honed by decades of resistance against the alien occupiers. "Hold the line," he bellowed. "We cannot falter, not when victory is within our grasp." And hold the line they did, as the human and alien forces fought with a skill and coordination that seemed to defy the Council's overwhelming numerical advantage. Time and again, the Galactic Council's warships were met with dogged resistance, their shields overwhelmed by a barrage of missiles, plasma blasts, and even kamikaze attacks from the most desperate of the human pilots. In the midst of the chaos, the Galactic Council's flagship, its imposing presence a symbol of the Council's power, was suddenly rocked by a series of devastating explosions. Amara Prasad, her eyes widening, realized that a covert team of human and alien commandos had infiltrated the vessel, intent on crippling the enemy's command and control capabilities. As the flagship's systems began to fail, the Galactic Council's forces found themselves in disarray, their once coordinated assault fragmenting into a desperate scramble for survival. The human and alien resistance, seizing the opportunity, pressed their advantage, raining down fire upon the reeling invaders. Finally, with a blinding flash of light and a thunderous explosion, the Galactic Council's flagship was reduced to a smoldering wreck, its commander and most of the senior leadership perishing in the cataclysmic event. The remaining Galactic Council forces, their morale shattered, began a hasty retreat, their once intimidating armada reduced to a ragged collection of battered ships. A deafening cheer rose up from the human and alien defenders, their triumph tempered by the sobering realization of the cost. Amara Prasad, her eyes brimming with tears, gazed out at the devastation, her heart heavy with the knowledge that many brave souls had paid the ultimate price for this victory. Matthias Wolff, his weathered features etched with a mixture of pride and sorrow, placed a comforting hand on Prasad's shoulder. "They did not die in vain," he said softly. "Their sacrifice has ensured that humanity, and all those who stand with us, will have the chance to forge a new future, freed from the shackles of Galactic Council tyranny." In the days and weeks that followed, the human and alien alliance on Kepler 186 set about the monumental task of rebuilding their war-torn home. While the Galactic Council's forces had been driven back, they knew that the Council itself would not rest until the last vestiges of the human resistance had been eradicated. Undaunted, Amara Prasad and Matthias Wolff led their people in a relentless campaign to fortify their defenses, to establish new outposts and colonies across the Kepler system, and to gather intelligence on the movements and intentions of their alien adversaries. As the human and alien alliance grew in strength and influence, whispers of their exploits began to spread through the galaxy, inspiring others who had long suffered under the Galactic Council's oppressive rule. One by one, new allies joined the cause, each one bringing their unique skills and resources to the fight for freedom. And in the shadows, the Galactic Council plotted its next move, its leaders consumed by a burning desire for vengeance. They knew that the human resistance, once a mere annoyance, had now become a formidable threat to their power, one that they could not ignore, lest it spread like a wildfire throughout the stars. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations, a titanic struggle that would determine the fate of not just humanity, but of the entire galaxy. And at the center of it all stood Amara Prasad, Matthias Wolff, and the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to be broken, no matter the cost.